4 out of 5 teenagers now have a mobile and use it to access chat rooms and social networking sites. But this obsession with their phones could be putting children at risk, as they can never be sure they know the person they're texting. Now, a new mobile application hopes to change that. It allows young people to check whether they are speaking to another child or an adult. Laura Bicker was there as it was shown to parents and children for the first time.
Looking at that, do you think that's written by a child, or do you think it's written by someone pretending to be a child?
You can never be sure who you're talking to online, but now there's a way to tell if it's an adult or a child. Researchers at Lancaster University have designed a mobile phone application called Child Defence. It analyses text speak from chat rooms or social networking sites to try to detect paedophiles posing as children.
It's quite good because so you know who you're talking to, and yeah, you don't want to get yourself into trouble or anything like that.
It's actually quite clever, and it's actually realised that it's adults pretending to be children or trying to be down with the kids who use all the over-the-top abbreviations.
So they think it's a child.
Children copy and paste their conversations into the application window. The software looks carefully at the patterns of language and the kind of text used. Every comma, every full stop is analysed to identify potential groomers.
This came directly out of it from the parents themselves. They told us they wanted to be able to trust their children rather than having to resort to sort of blanket monitoring of their online activity.
Alice and her mum know how easily children can be preyed upon over the internet. She was contacted when using an online chat room.
My daughter thought the individual that was speaking to her was somebody that she knew, and obviously over a period of time it became clear that it wasn't.
We're not always around when they use their phones, so that's why it's so important to have some way of protecting them when they're out and about.
Hi, you're through to someone you can talk to.
Last year, it's thought that more than 1,500 children were groomed over the internet. The NSPCC hopes this app will encourage children to report the crime, but they warn against complacency.
It can lull us into thinking, you know, that the child is safe and therefore we can move on to something else. I would certainly say that measures of this sort can be helpful, but they need to be seen as one part of the wider armoury we have for tackling child sexual abuse.
Children's charities warn that paedophiles are using ever more sophisticated methods to groom children on their mobile phones. Well, now it seems at least technology is catching up with them.
And then if you needed to report that person, what button would you press then?
The app will be available for download in the next week. Laura Bicker, BBC News, Lancaster.
Well, John Taylor is a former police officer and now an internet safety consultant. He's with me in the studio. Thanks very much indeed for coming in. Just tell us, how does this application work?
It's a simple application by way of when you're having a chat with another individual. If you cut and paste the chat log in its entirety into this application, the application can check that the chat content and establish whether the person you're talking to is a child or an adult.
So it does that by trying to pick out words that perhaps a child wouldn't use?
Yes, it's very sophisticated, but that's part of it. That's certain the patterns, the time it takes to say certain things, and also obviously you say like word association, and it is very accurate.
It doesn't sound as if it's foolproof, though. I mean, if you've got a very clever paedophile out there who knows how to write text or whatever the way that a teenager or a young person would, it sounds as if they could beat the system.
Yes, but the statistics that James and his colleagues are on testing it's the high 90s that have shown that there's an accuracy of high 90% that they can identify an adult rather than a child. So it is pretty good statistics.
But it is important to stress, as we heard someone in that piece say, that this could lull parents or guardians or whatever into a false sense of security. Yeah. The application is there, it's on the computer, it's dealing with everything. I mean, parents have to be involved in monitoring their children.
100%. Chris was quite right there. It's nice to see, though, that where the problem is electronic, the electronic software experts are trying to design applications that can assist. But the first approach must be a parent having a dialogue with their child to know where their child is online, how their child is using the internet, whether chat rooms, social networking sites, instant messaging, all those sorts of areas where they can be preyed upon.
I mean, you're a former policeman, internet consultant now. You've got 3 young girls. How do you monitor them?
Monitoring is by dialogue, trying to explain where they can go and how they can remain safe. But one main area is the social networking site. All social, but 99% of all social networking sites have a minimum age, that being 13. So my argument will always be, why then Year 7 pupils, aged 11, why are 80% of them saying that they've got profiles on social networking sites? It implies that all these children have lied to get a profile. So the first thing I've done is say, well, we'll stick with the terms and conditions. You shouldn't be on chat rooms, because that's predominantly for 18 and over, and you shouldn't have a social networking site until you're 13. And what I do is say, we'll start off by limiting the amount of contacts you can have. When you're 13, you can have 30. When you're 14, you can have 40. There's this element of trust that comes into it. I would never stop the internet being used. So I've basically had a good dialogue with my 3 girls. They all use the internet. They all love the internet, whether Club Penguin or Facebook, but they use it sensibly and they understand the dangers. And
this application is a step in the right direction as well in helping to keep safeguard young people.
Definitely, because you've got to understand in the mobile social network, mobile phones, everything about the internet is now portable. It's theirs, but it's a mobile phone or an iPad now. The children themselves have to have an app like this, because they will talk about applications. It's great to see an application out there that they themselves can use.
Sure, we'll leave it there. John Taylor, it's good to have you in. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate what you heard in Laura Bicker's report, if you're interested, that Child Defence app will be available to download from next week.